At my birthday party, ready to share the biggest news, my husband made a speech. He handed me a gift box. Inside was a note. "I'm leaving you. You're useless." He laughed and walked out. He didn't know I was pregnant or what I'd already discovered. I simply smiled. This is my story. Like, share, and tell me where you're listening from. The soft glow of fairy lights shimmered, reflecting in the expectant faces of my friends and family. It was my birthday, a day I'd planned to be unforgettable for more reasons than one. Tonight, I, Alara, was going to announce that our family was growing, that Lukas and I were expecting. The thought alone filled me with a warmth that rivaled the champagne bubbles in my glass. I watched Lukas, my husband, as he rose to make his customary birthday speech. He always loved being the center of attention, charming everyone with his easy smile and theatrical gestures. He began, his voice smooth and confident, reminiscing about our early days, painting a picture of a perfect life, a perfect couple. A lump formed in my throat, a mix of genuine affection and the nervous flutter of anticipation for my own impending announcement. Then his tone shifted. "Alara," he said, holding out a small, elegantly wrapped gift box. "This is for you." My heart pounded. Was this a prelude? A sweet gesture before he helped me share our news? I took the box, my fingers trembling slightly as I unwrapped it. Inside, nestled on a bed of tissue, was a single, stark white note. My eyes scanned the elegant script, each word a hammer blow to my soul. "I'm leaving you. You're useless, and I deserve better." The room, which had been buzzing with soft chatter and laughter, seemed to fall utterly silent. The air grew heavy, thick with unspoken questions. Lukas, however, didn't miss a beat. A chilling, hollow laugh escaped his lips. "Well, that's that then," he declared, his eyes devoid of warmth, fixed on no one in particular. He turned on his heel and walked out, leaving a stunned crowd and me, standing there holding a note that had just ripped my world apart. A lesser woman might have crumpled. A lesser woman might have screamed. But in that moment, a strange calm settled over me. It was a mask, of course, a strategic shield for the utter devastation and humiliation that threatened to consume me. I simply smiled. A tight, almost imperceptible smile that was more of a reflex than genuine emotion. It bought me precious seconds, moments to process, to breathe. He had no idea, I thought, no idea about the tiny life stirring within me, or about the other, far darker discoveries I'd made long before tonight. The truth was, Lukas's betrayal, while shocking in its public display, wasn't entirely a surprise. For weeks, a gnawing suspicion had been growing inside me. It started subtly, late nights, vague excuses, a shift in his demeanor. Then came the concrete evidence. One afternoon, while helping him organize his office, I stumbled upon a secret credit card statement tucked away in a hidden compartment of his desk. The charges were damning: a luxury hotel suite for a weekend in the city, dinner tabs at obscenely expensive restaurants, and a jeweler I knew only specialized in high-end pieces, not for an engagement ring, but for something else entirely. Later, a flash of text notifications on his Apple Watch, left carelessly on the charger, caught my eye. A name stood out, repeated several times. Margot. The messages were intimate, far too intimate for a casual acquaintance. "Can't wait to see you. You were amazing last night. Thinking of you, Em." As the guest slowly started to murmur, a figure moved to my side. It was Beatrice, my best friend, her face a storm cloud of fury. "The bastard," she muttered, low enough only for me to hear, her hand gently squeezing my arm. Her presence was a lifeline in that swirling vortex of disbelief. With her silent support, I managed to keep my composure. "Well," I said, my voice remarkably steady, addressing the bewildered faces around me, "who's ready for some birthday cake?" The sheer audacity of it seemed to shock them back into some semblance of normalcy, or perhaps they were just too stunned to argue. I sliced the cake, each movement precise, automatic. My hands didn't shake. My smile, though still strained, remained in place. I served each slice, accepting condolences, deflecting awkward questions with practiced ease. But my eyes were constantly scanning the room. They landed on Margot, a distant cousin of Lukas's, who had been introduced to me only a few months prior. She looked distinctly uncomfortable, her gaze darting around the room, avoiding mine. As I handed a piece of cake to an elderly aunt, I saw Margot grab her purse and slip out of the party, almost running. A new chill settled over me, a chilling confirmation of my suspicions. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture far uglier than I could have imagined. It wasn't until the last guest had departed, leaving only the quiet echo of the night, that the mask finally shattered. Beatrice was there, cleaning up scattered napkins and discarded plates, her presence a silent testament to her unwavering loyalty. The moment the door clicked shut, I crumpled. The tears, held back by sheer force of will, came in a torrent, hot and raw. "He left me be," I sobbed, the words tasting like ash. "In front of everyone, and he doesn't even know? He doesn't know about the baby." The last words were a whisper, barely audible, but they hung in the air between us, heavy with their revelation. Beatrice dropped the plate she was holding, the porcelain clattering against the marble counter. Her eyes, wide with shock, quickly softened with fierce determination. "A baby? Laura? Oh, honey." She enveloped me in a tight embrace, letting me cry into her shoulder. When my sobs finally subsided, replaced by a dull ache, I pulled away, wiping my face. "And there's more," I confessed, my voice hoarse, and laid out all the evidence. The credit card statements, the text, Margot's hurried exit. Beatrice listened, her jaw tightening with each new detail. "We can't let him get away with this," she finally declared, her voice cold. "Not after everything. Not with a baby involved." We spent hours strategizing, our voices low and urgent in the quiet apartment. My public humiliation was a wound, but it would also be my strength. Lukas had played his hand, thinking he had won. He had no idea what I held. We would reveal the baby news on my terms, not as a desperate plea, but as a statement of resilience. And the truth about his affair, that too would emerge, slowly, meticulously, painting him not as a charming man moving on, but as a deceitful coward. Looking down at my still flat stomach, I made a silent vow to the tiny life within. "You will have a stable home, a secure future, and a mother who stands strong." Lukas might have thought he broke me, but he had merely forged me into something sharper, something far more dangerous. The best revenge requires patience, planning, and a clear head, and I had both. Tonight was just the beginning. Undefined. The morning light, usually a gentle comfort, felt harsh and intrusive. I woke with a jolt, the events of my birthday party crashing down on me like a tidal wave. The quiet stillness of the apartment, however, was immediately softened by the scent of coffee and toast. Beatrice was already in the kitchen, a quiet, reassuring presence, brewing a fresh pot. She didn't say much, just placed a mug of steaming tea in my hands and a plate of scrambled eggs before me. Her simple actions were a balm to my fractured soul, an anchor in the chaotic storm swirling inside me. Lukas hadn't returned, of course. His side of the bed remained untouched, a stark monument to his departure. A strange alchemy brewed within me, a deep, aching numbness, a simmering rage that threatened to boil over, and a detached, almost clinical drive to plan. I found myself reaching for a notepad, my mind already cataloging. Financial records, shared accounts, legal options, medical appointments, prenatal care, informing my doctor about the stress. Then a mental list of who to tell, and more importantly, how. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the tiny, vulnerable life growing inside. Beatrice, sensing my shift from raw grief to practical resolve, joined me at the kitchen table. "Let's start small," she suggested, her voice steady. We moved to the master bedroom, the space that had once felt so intimately ours. Now it just felt empty. Together we began packing some of Lukas's things, clothes from his closet, toiletries from the bathroom, his favorite books from the nightstand. Each item we placed into a spare suitcase felt like a definitive severance, a physical manifestation of his declaration. This wasn't just about clearing space, it was about acknowledging that there was no return. This wasn't a temporary argument, it was a permanent split. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages poured in from friends, a mix of disbelief, sympathy, and outrage. "I can't believe Lukas. Are you okay, Alara? We're here for you." Each message was a small, comforting hand reaching out. I responded vaguely, thanking them for their support, promising to call later when I had more to say. But one name was conspicuously absent from my notifications: Margot. Her silence screamed louder than any accusation. I called in sick to work, my voice surprisingly steady as I explained I wouldn't be in. My priority shifted. The next call was to my gynecologist's office. "I need to confirm a pregnancy," I stated, the words both terrifying and empowering. They scheduled me for an appointment the following morning. This was real. This was happening. Around noon, my phone chimed with an unfamiliar urgency. It was Lukas. A text message, blunt and devoid of emotion. "I'll be by at 7 to get my things. Make sure you are not there." My breath hitched. The sheer audacity, the arrogance. He expected me to cower, to hide away while he collected his belongings. A cold, hard resolve solidified in my chest. I typed a single, firm word: no. Then without hesitation, I called Beatrice. "He's coming," I told her, my voice low, "and he thinks I won't be here." As 6:30 p.m. approached, my apartment slowly filled with a quiet, determined presence. Beatrice had called a few of our closest friends, and they had responded without question. Ethan, a towering figure with a protective gaze, sat on the sofa. Samuel, thoughtful and observant, leaned against the doorframe. Lena, her eyes burning with fierce loyalty, brewed a fresh pot of coffee, ready for anything. Others arrived, forming a silent, formidable circle. We didn't need to speak much. Our collective presence was the message. This was my home, and I was not alone. Precisely at 7 p.m., the doorbell rang. Lukas, still wearing the same shirt from the night before, looked disheveled but still held an air of self-importance. His hand was poised to ring again when the door swung open. His eyes, initially scanning for an empty hallway, widened visibly as they landed on the assembled group in my living room. His jaw dropped, a flicker of genuine shock crossing his face. The welcoming committee stood in a silent, unwavering phalanx. Ethan stepped forward, a single packed suitcase in hand. "Lukas," he said, his voice deep and calm, offering no hint of menace, but carrying immense weight. "Here's one bag. The rest of your things will be available when you can demonstrate basic human decency and discuss this with Alara like an adult." He extended the suitcase, forcing Lukas to take it. I stepped out from behind Ethan, my gaze meeting Lukas's directly. My voice was steady, infused with a quiet power I hadn't known I possessed. "You're lucky I haven't changed the locks, Lukas. We'll discuss the rest of your belongings after I've processed your lovely birthday surprise." I watched a muscle tick in his jaw. The control had shifted, and he knew it. He finally tore his gaze from mine, a sneer forming on his lips. "Always needing an audience, Alara," he muttered, turning to leave, the suitcase a clumsy burden in his hand. He slammed the apartment door shut, the echo a final punctuation mark on our shared life. As the tension in the room dissipated, and my friends began to offer hesitant words of comfort, I felt the dam finally break. Not for Lukas, not for the man who had just walked out, but for the future, the family, the dreams that had been so cruelly snatched away. I cried for the life that would never be, for the shattered illusion of our shared happily ever after, for the innocence lost. My hand instinctively went to my stomach, a silent promise to the tiny life that deserves so much more. Samuel, ever the observant one, came over, his expression grim. "I heard a few things," he began, his voice low. "Lukas and Margot, they've been seeing each other for a while. Not just a recent thing. Weeks, maybe months." The words, though expected, still landed like a physical blow, deepening the cut of betrayal, twisting the knife further into my already raw heart. The 2 weeks following my birthday were a blur of purposeful action. The initial shock had given way to a quiet, steely determination. My first appointment confirmed it. I was 10 weeks pregnant. The tiny flicker of life on the ultrasound screen, barely visible but undeniably there, solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about my hurt. It was about ensuring a stable, secure future for my baby. I spent hours with a family lawyer dissecting joint accounts, property leases, and navigating the complexities of dissolving a shared life. I instructed them to freeze all joint credit cards to ensure Lukas couldn't drain our resources. This newfound ruthless efficiency was fueled by a primal protective instinct. The pregnancy remained my secret, a powerful, unspoken card I held close to my chest, a strategic advantage in the unfolding drama. 2 weeks to the day after Lucas's dramatic exit, my phone buzzed with his name. "Can we talk?" the text read, followed by, "I need to get some more of my things." The casual presumption of it grated on me, but I saw an opportunity. Not in the apartment, not on his terms. "Meet me at the Daily Grind coffee shop, tomorrow at 3 p.m., I replied, asserting my control over the time and location. A public place, a neutral zone, a stage for my carefully prepared performance. He was already there when I arrived, hunched over a small table in the corner, looking surprisingly disheveled. His usually impeccably styled hair was a mess, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He looked smaller. He started almost immediately, a stream of hollow, half-ass apologies. "Alara, I'm so sorry. I just felt so trapped. I needed a clean break. I didn't mean to hurt you." The words were rehearsed, devoid of genuine remorse, focused more on his perceived suffering than on the wreckage he'd left behind. I let him talk, sipping my latte, my gaze unwavering. When he finally paused, taking a ragged breath, I cut in, my voice calm, almost conversational. "Is Margot making you happy, Lucas?" His eyes, which had been darting around the room, snapped to mine, wide with shock. His mouth opened and closed a few times, a strangled sound escaping. "Margot? What are you talking about? There's no Margot!" He stammered, his denials transparent, clumsy. I leaned forward slightly, my voice dropping to a low, deliberate tone. "Don't insult my intelligence, Lucas. I know about Margot. I know about the hotel charges from that weekend in the city, the exorbitant restaurant bills, the jewelry store you frequented. I saw the texts on your Apple Watch. Each revelation was a surgical strike, delivered without anger, just cold, hard fact." I watched the color drain from his face, the bluster deflating out of him like a punctured balloon. He had underestimated me, severely. "So," I continued, pressing my advantage, "here's how this is going to work. You can collect the rest of your things this Saturday at 2 p.m. Ethan will be here to supervise the packing. After that, all the communication regarding our shared assets, the apartment, anything at all, will go through my lawyer." "Lawyer?" His voice squeaked, a high-pitched sound of panic. "Alara, come on. We can work this out ourselves. We don't need lawyers. It's just messy, expensive." He was suddenly trying to backtrack, to regain some semblance of control. "We are past that point, Lucas," I stated, my voice firm. "You made your choice at my birthday party. Publicly, unambiguously. I'm simply respecting your decision." He reached across the table, his hand seizing my wrist, his grip surprisingly tight. "How are you going to afford this apartment by yourself, Alara?" he demanded, his eyes finally revealing his true, selfish concern. "You barely make enough to cover your half." The mask of remorse was gone, replaced by a desperate, worried man whose primary concern was not my well-being, but the financial implications for himself. And then I delivered the final, crushing blow. My gaze held his, unwavering. "Funny you should ask, Lucas, because for the past 6 months, I've been covering more than half the rent, seeing as your contributions have been so sporadic. And unlike you," I continued, a slight bitter smile playing on my lips, "I actually saved money instead of spending it on hotel rooms and jewelry." His face drained of all color, turning an ashen gray. His grip on my wrist loosened, falling away. He looked utterly defeated, utterly stripped bare. The full weight of my knowledge, the meticulous planning I had undertaken crashed down on him. He had thought me weak, emotional, easily discarded. He was wrong. I stood up, pushing my chair back with a soft scrape. I had nothing left to say to him. He was a superficial, lying man, and I finally saw him for what he was, without the veil of love or shared history. As I walked out of the daily grind, leaving him staring blankly at his cold coffee, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The apartment, my home, felt more mine already, waiting for me to reclaim every inch of it, free from his deceitful shadow. The air outside tasted sweet, Life settled into a new purposeful rhythm after Lucas's departure. The apartment, once a shared space filled with dual histories, was slowly but surely transforming into my sanctuary. I painted a wall in the nursery, started researching baby furniture, and meticulously organized my finances. This wasn't the future I'd envisioned, but it wasn't worse. It was simply different, and I was determined to make it beautiful. Every choice, every action was now filtered through the lens of motherhood, a powerful driving force that replaced the lingering sting of betrayal with fierce resolve. The city's social grapevine, however, kept me loosely tethered to Lucas's increasingly turbulent world. Samuel's cousin, a notorious source of local gossip, often relayed snippets of information. Lucas and Margot, it seemed, were not exactly thriving in their newfound freedom. Public arguments were becoming more frequent. Hushed whispers of financial strain followed them, and Margot, according to the reports, looked increasingly unhappy. Lucas, it turned out, had painted a rather extravagant picture of his financial stability, one that didn't quite align with his actual bank balance. A fact I, of course, was intimately aware of. His promises of a lavish, exciting life with Margot were proving to be as hollow as his birthday apology. A month after our terse coffee shop encounter, fate intervened in the produce aisle of my local grocery store. I was examining a bunch of organic carrots when I heard a hesitant voice call my name. Alara? I turned to see Margot, looking remarkably tired, her usual polished demeanor replaced by an air of weary defeat. Her eyes, red-rimmed and guarded, met mine. She clearly hadn't expected to see me. Oh, she began, a nervous fidgeting with her shopping cart. Lucas, he told me you two were separated. He said you were barely together, just roommates, really. The words tumbled out, a desperate attempt to justify her actions, to shift blame away from herself. I simply raised an eyebrow, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips. Does it matter now, Margot? I asked, my voice calm, almost detached. You wanted him. You got him. You should enjoy it. I picked up a head of lettuce, examining it as if it held the secrets of the universe, refusing to give her the emotional reaction she was clearly seeking. As I turned my cart to move away, she called after me, her voice tinged with a raw desperation. No, wait, Alara, he wasn't what I thought. He promised things he couldn't deliver. Things are hard. I'm stuck. Her words trailed off, a pathetic plea for understanding, perhaps even sympathy. I paused, turning back just slightly, my expression unreadable. Margot, I stated, my voice devoid of emotion, that sounds like a personal problem that I couldn't possibly help you with. And with that, I pushed my cart down the aisle, leaving her standing amidst the vibrant greens, her grievances hanging in the air like wilted leaves. 6 weeks post-breakup, the subtle changes in my body began to give way to something unmistakable. A small, firm bump had started to emerge, a tender curve that was impossible to hide any longer. The time for quiet secrets was over. It was time to embrace this new reality openly. My first conversation was with my boss, a kind, understanding woman who offered her full support and flexibility. Then, gradually, I began to tell my closest friends, Beatrice, Ethan, Samuel, Lena. Each revelation met with cheers, hugs, and promises of unwavering support. My family, though shocked, quickly rallied around me, their love a powerful shield. Word of my pregnancy began to ripple through our social circles. I knew it was only a matter of time before it reached Lucas, but I was no longer hiding, no longer ashamed. The baby was happening, a beautiful, undeniable truth that would unfold with or without his involvement, on my terms. He had made his choice, and now I was making mine. My focus was unwavering, creating a stable, loving environment for my child. I spent countless evenings organizing, planning, getting my ducks in a row, as Beatrice would say. Financial arrangements, childcare options, prenatal classes. Each task completed was a step forward, a tangible manifestation of my commitment. With every kick, every flutter within me, my resolve strengthened, cementing my path as a single mother, ready to face whatever lay ahead. If you're finding Alara's story as captivating as I am, make sure you hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe so you don't miss the next twist. 7 weeks had passed since Lucas's theatrical exit, a lifetime in my new reality. I was now 17 weeks pregnant, and my bump was a beautiful, undeniable testament to the life growing within me. The news of my pregnancy had clearly reached Lucas, triggering a frantic barrage of texts. My phone buzzed relentlessly, a digital echo of his panic. "Is it true? Are you pregnant? Why didn't you tell me? We need to talk immediately." The first few messages were a mix of disbelief and indignation. I held my phone, watching them come in, a strange mix of satisfaction and dread coiling in my stomach. This was the moment I knew would come, but I needed to process this new phase, to consider what, if any, role he would play in this child's life. I didn't respond immediately. His texts grew increasingly desperate, the panic giving way to anger. "I have rights, you know. You can't keep my child from me." And finally, the ultimatum: "Call me back or I'm coming over." I typed my response carefully, each word measured and deliberate. "Do not come to my apartment uninvited, Lucas. If you do, I will call the police. I will contact you when I am ready." It was a clear boundary, a line in the sand. He backed off, at least for a couple of days. The silence was a brief, unsettling reprieve. Then 2 nights later, at precisely 11 p.m., a jarring pounding rattled my front door. It was unmistakable. Lucas. My heart pounded, but not with fear, with a cold, clear anger. I moved silently to the door, peering through the peephole. He was there, swaying slightly, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. He was clearly drunk. "Alara, open the door. I know you're in there." His voice was slurred, booming through the quiet hallway. "We need to talk about our baby." I could hear the desperation in his tone, a raw, ugly sound that mixed with the alcohol on his breath. He pounded again, then slid down the door, a muffled "dong" escaping his lips. "I made a mistake, Alara, a huge mistake." He alternated between demands and pleas. A broken record of regret and entitlement, a bitter satisfaction settled over me. His grand exit strategy had unequivocally failed. He was crumbling, exposed, and vulnerable, just as I knew he would be when reality hit him. I pressed my ear against the door, my voice low and firm, deliberately devoid of emotion. "You're drunk, Lucas. Go home." My words were calm, a stark contrast to his frantic pleas. "I'm 18 weeks pregnant, and yes, it's your child. Now go home." Saying it out loud through the closed door felt like a powerful declaration, a reclaiming of my narrative. A dull thud against the door followed, as if he had slumped further down. "Margot," he mumbled, his voice thick with self-pity. "Margot left me. Said I wasn't who she thought. Said I promised things I couldn't deliver." A dry, almost cynical laugh escaped my lips. "That sounded familiar," I commented, a cruel echo of his own actions and Margot's desperate grocery store lament. The irony was palpable, a bitter aftertaste to his comeuppance. "Please, Alara," he begged, his voice cracking. "Just let me in. We need to talk. I can explain everything. I still love you." The words were meaningless, empty platitudes from a desperate man. "Not tonight, Lucas," I stated, my voice unwavering. "You're not fit to talk right now. If you want to discuss anything, you can meet me at the Daily Grind tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. sober." This was his last chance, his final opportunity to engage like a rational adult. "Otherwise," I added, "don't bother contacting me again. Everything will go through my lawyer." There was a long pause filled with his ragged breathing, then a soft, defeated whisper. "Okay. Okay, Alara, 10 a.m. I'll be there." I heard the scrape of his phone, then the low murmur of him calling a ride, his voice a shadow of its former arrogant self. I stood there for a long moment after the car pulled away, the silence finally settling back into the hallway. The storm had passed for now. At precisely 9:55 a.m. the next morning, Lucas walked into the Daily Grind. He looked even worse than he had a few nights prior, haggard, his clothes wrinkled, eyes bloodshot and shadowed, but at least he was sober. He approached my table hesitantly, pulling out a chair. "Alara," he croaked, his voice rough. "Can I get you something? A decaf latte, right?" A tiny, almost imperceptible pang hit me. I used to drink decaf lattes. Now it was soothing herbal tea. He hadn't noticed or hadn't cared enough to remember the small details of my life. No, thank you, I replied, my voice calm. I have my tea. He started immediately, a torrent of apologies, all the usual "I messed up" cliches. He checked off every box on the imaginary "I messed up" form. I was confused. I was stressed. I didn't know what I had. It was transparent, performative, and utterly devoid of genuine depth. When he finally ran out of breath, I looked at him, my expression unreadable. "What do you want, Lukas?" I asked simply. He stammered, I I want to be involved. I want to do the right thing. And maybe, Alara, maybe we could try again? For the baby? The last part tumbled out, hopeful and desperate, making me laugh. A genuine, almost disbelieving laugh. The absurdity of it, after everything, was just too much. "Lukas," I said, my voice firm as my laughter died down, "there will be no trying again for us, ever. Our relationship is over, completely. What we will discuss is co-parenting." I then laid out my terms clearly and concisely. Child support, custody arrangements, scheduled visits, consistent involvement, all of it will be handled through my lawyer. He tried to steer the conversation back to us, to reconciliation, to what we had. I cut him off, smoothly redirecting him back to the practicalities of raising a child together. He sighed, frustrated. "You're so cold, Alara. So calculated." I met his gaze, a slight smile playing on my lips. "Your birthday note was cold and calculated, Lukas. My calculation," I said, patting the gentle swell of my stomach, "is for our child, for her future." I reached into my bag and pulled out a slim folder. "Here," I said, pushing it across onto the table. Inside were printed ultrasound pictures, clearly showing our baby, a note with the due date, and a draft of the child support agreement from my lawyer. "Review this. Get your own lawyer to look it over, then we talk." He stared at the folder, his face a mixture of shock and resignation. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The nursery began to take shape, filled with soft colors and tiny furniture. I picked up extra shifts at work, determined to cover any financial gaps and ensure I wouldn't have to rely solely on child support. Beatrice was a constant source of support, helping me paint, assemble cribs, and offering endless cups of herbal tea. One afternoon, I was at the coffee shop getting a takeaway when I heard my name. "Alara, wait!" It was Margot. She looked even more strained than before, but this time her eyes held something different. Genuine remorse. "I just wanted to say, I'm so sorry, Alara, for everything. Lukas, he really lied to me. He lost his job last week too. Said he was too distraught to perform." The information wasn't surprising, but the sincere tone of her apology caught me off guard. It wasn't about justifying herself anymore, but genuinely acknowledging the pain she had caused. I nodded, accepting her words, a quiet understanding passing between us. A few days later, a familiar pounding echoed at my door. Lukas. He stood there, completely distraught, his eyes red and puffy. "I lost everything, Alara," he choked out, his voice broken. "My job. Margot left me. I have nothing left." He was a shell of the charming, arrogant man he once was. I looked at him, not with triumph, but with a weary clarity. "You have two paths, Lukas," I told him, my voice calm. "You can have your pity party, wallow in self-destruction, and lose any chance of being a father to our child. Or you can step up, rebuild, and earn your place in her life." The weight of my words seemed to crush him, and he sank to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. That night was a turning point. Lukas started to change, genuinely. He found a new, albeit less glamorous job. He signed the child support agreement, no longer arguing. He began attending parenting classes, awkward and out of place at first, but with a quiet determination. Finally, the day came. Baby Aurora arrived, a perfect 7 loves 4 oahs bundle of pure, unadulterated love. Lukas was there for the birth, looking completely out of his depth. Yet there was genuine emotion in his eyes when he first held her. He was still clumsy, still awkward, but he was there. Alara and Lukas established a cautious but functional co-parenting relationship. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Alara, however, had moved on. She found new connections, new friendships, even a blossoming, gentle connection with Liam, a kind and steady presence she met at her prenatal yoga class. Her life, once shattered, was now rebuilt, stronger and more beautiful than she could have ever imagined. Each morning holding Aurora, she felt an immense sense of gratitude, a quiet strength that emanated from deep within her. The betrayal had nearly broken her, but it had ultimately forged her into the unstoppable woman she was always meant to be. The story began with a devastating betrayal, a cruel note delivered at my own birthday party, shattering my plans to announce a new life. "I'm leaving you, you're useless, and I deserve better," Lukas had written, walking away amidst the stunned silence of our friends. Everyone waited for my breakdown, but I just smiled. That calm, almost eerie smile was my silent promise, a promise that he had no idea what I was truly capable of. 2 months later, the charming, attentive man I had known, the one with whom I'd built a life, however financially stretched, was a drunken, desperate wreck outside my door, screaming my name. He had made his grand exit, but I had engineered his even grander, more public downfall. From that moment of public humiliation, I meticulously rebuilt my life, not just for myself, but for baby Aurora. My initial sorrow morphed into a quiet, unwavering strength, turning every obstacle into a stepping stone. This wasn't just a breakup story, it was a testament to resilience, the silent power of a woman wronged, and the unexpected beauty of a life reclaimed. I emerged stronger, wiser, and with a love that transcended any past pain.